Your knowledge of contract language is imperative.
You must know what a violation looks like if you wish to be active in its cessation.
It is important to understand that being active and knowledgeable affects your overall bargaining strength.
Together, we can forge a more militant NALC.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, the podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Now, we are currently sitting at grievance number 575 for the year 2025. Normally, I would wrap up my year right now because I like to make it so that 2026 starts in a place where, like, for example, if I filed the grievance today, it probably won't be resolved until 2026. So I start 2026 maybe 2 weeks prior to 2026. For some reason, my president had told me no. I've been doing that for the last 3 years. So whatever, I guess he has the right to do so. So that's his choice. You know, technically he's the president. So I guess maybe I'll hit that 600 mark this year. Regardless, don't forget tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow, if not maybe the next day, but tomorrow, I believe, is 14 days from the end of the year, which, by the way, is the day that they're supposed to post the ODL sign-up sheet for next quarter. So make sure they're doing that. If they're not, file a grievance. Article 8, by the way. All right, so after last episode, reading from The Rights of Union Stewards, The Legal Rights of Union Stewards. By the way, this is by Robert Schwartz. I got some good commentary on it, but I got a little bit confusion about, some people didn't know what the National Labor Relations Act was, and some people also didn't know what a ULP is. So I'm going to read from Chapter 1 this time, talking about the National Labor Relations Act. Maybe I'll get a couple more chapters in if you guys like this. But, yeah, I think it's a great book. Anybody should go and buy this. And I'll start from the top. The National Labor Relations Act. The principal U.S. labor law is the National Labor Relations Act. The NLRA was enacted in 1935, and it is administered by the National Labor Relations Board. Before the NLRA, employers could freely spy on, interrogate, discipline, blacklist, and fire union members. During the Great Depression, however, unions took over factories, engaged in general strikes, and battled police and private security forces. Some historians believe that Congress passed the NLRA to avoid a possibility of a revolutionary upsurge. By the way, they gutted the NLRA with the Taft-Hartley Act later on. I don't know if it's going to mention this in the book. But, you know, of course they had to hurt our ability to move forward. But I think that U.S. labor law is not nearly as strong as it needs to be. The NLRA doesn't hold as much of an impact as it needs to, but it's better than nothing. So sometimes you got to work within the constraints that you have. The NLRA declares collective bargaining the official policy of the United States. Employers are forbidden from discriminating against workers who join unions, exercise leadership, or take part in strikes. The NLRA spurred union organizing, especially in basic industries such as automobile, steel, electronics, and meatpacking. By 1945, union contracts covered a third of the private sector workforce. Following a nationwide strike wave in 1945 and 1946, business interests demanded changes in the NLRA. The Taft-Hartley Act of 1947 passed over a veto by the President Truman. It weakened many union rights. The Landrum-Griffin Act of 1959 added additional restraints. Didn't I tell you? I guess I'm reading its mind. The most impactful provisions in the NLRA are Sections 7, 8, and 9. Section 7 provides that employees shall have the right to self-organization, to form join, or assist labor organizations to bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing, and to engage in other concerted activities for the purpose of collective bargaining or other mutual aid or protection. By the way, concerted activities are a very good protected right. For example, we have all these policies that talk about, in many, many different companies, we have policies that talk about HR shit, like can't post this on social media, you can't do this or that, you got to represent us in your off time in a way that's reflecting positive. That's an ELM provision. I do believe it's ELM 665.16 that kind of encompasses this, but I'm sure there's more than one. Anyway, certain things like our concerted rights, or rights for concerted activities, have been upheld in the courts. For example, someone in Chipotle posted pictures complaining about customers and the experience that they had as a worker. They got fired, of course, because they had policies such as ours, and they got their job back because that was part of their concerted activities. They were getting together and talking about their working conditions. All right, Section 8 prohibits specific misconduct by employers and unions. These are known as unfair labor practices, or ULPs. Section 8A lists 5 types of employer violations: interference, restraint, or coercion directed against union or other collective activity. Section 8A1, creation or domination of a labor organization. Section 8A2, discrimination against employees because of union or collective activity. Section 8A3, retaliation for filing ULP charges or cooperating with the NLRB. Section 8A4, and refusal to bargain in good faith with union representatives. Section 8A5. Threats against union representatives violate Section 8A1. Discharges and suspensions of union representatives violate Sections 8A1 and 8A3. Unilateral changes, refusals to supply information, and failures to allow union assistance during investigatory interviews violate Sections 8A1 and 8A5. Section 8B bars union unfair labor practices, including discrimination against members of the bargaining unit, bargaining in bad faith, and secondary strikes. Section 9 sets out procedures which employees can use to obtain union recognition. I was part of this union recognition process in my last job. In the beginning of the year, I'm going to do an episode talking about myself, officially introducing myself, because I never really talked about my past or who I am. But that's beside the point. I'm going to get to that in the beginning of the year. But, unfair labor practices are things that anybody can file against either the union or against their employer. And typically the employer one involves a union representative. For example, one of the unfair labor practices we call these labor charges, ended up resulting in a $17,500 fee for every time that management failed to provide us information. Of course, that fee went to the courts. So, you win some, you lose some. Didn't go to us, it went to the courts. But that's how powerful these labor charges can be. Many people want to file a labor charge against their union, which may or may not be legitimate. Just remember that you have to prove these labor charges. The burden of proof is on you. And one of the things that's most common is people will file against either discrimination against themselves as a member. You got to prove that you're being discriminated against, which is tough to do. Also, they might file for incompetence, like the union failing to file grievances, even though they brought to their attention. As long as they're having incompetence across the board, it's technically allowed, unfortunately, as bad as that sounds. There are other better options for filing against your union, like Article 10 charges. But it's all situational. So it all depends on your situation and how you think you can navigate it best. All right, so the National Labor Relations Board is an independent agency with 26 regional and 22 sub-regional and resident offices. The NLRB is headed by a 5-person board, members appointed by the President with Senate consent. Terms are 5 years, with one term expiring each year. In recent years, presidential appointments have been strongly ideological, with Democrats generally appointing pro-union members and Republicans pro-business. I know right now the National Labor Relations Board is suffering under our current presidency. Don't take that as an attack. It just is a fact. Unions can file unfair labor practice charges with the NLRB up to 6 months after illegal employer conduct. Forms are available on the NLRB website. It's www.nlrb.gov. Procedure. A ULP charge form can be filled out online. However, the union must print and sign the charge and mail, fax, or deliver it to a regional office. The regional office serves a copy on the employer. The union should serve and charge itself if near the end of the 6-month filing period. Investigation. NLRB agents investigate charges by interviewing witnesses and reviewing documents. When the investigation is complete, the agent and the agent's supervisor submit a recommendation to the regional director to issue a complaint, defer to arbitration, or dismiss the charge. Complaint. If the regional director concludes that a complaint is warranted, the agent informs the employer and attempts to bring about a settlement. If efforts fail, the region issues a complaint and schedules the matter for a hearing before an administrative law judge. An NLRB attorney prosecutes the case. Following the hearing, the administrative law judge can order the employer to cease illegal activity, make up for any harm, and post a notice promising not to commit similar violations. The administrative law judge cannot impose imprisonment or a fine. The employer or the union, or both, can appeal the ALJ's decision to the board in Washington, D.C. Further appeals can be taken to the federal courts. Deferral. Under a policy called deferral, regional directors can suspend action on union-filed ULP charges if the employer agrees to resolve the matter in arbitration. The NLRB justifies deferral as a way of conserving resources. Unions say the policy takes away their right to have NLRA infractions rectified by the labor board and forces them to arbitrate conduct that may not be covered by the contract. The NLRB does not defer ULP charges alleging failure to provide information, violation of Weingarten rights, retaliation for labor board charges. An otherwise deferrable charge may be investigated if the grievance deadline has expired and the employer refuses to allow a late filing. If the employer exhibits hostility to workers' rights or the grievance process, if the contract does not even arguably encompass the dispute at issue, or in cases involving discipline, threats, or other interference with protected activity. If the union refuses to stipulate that an arbitrator can resolve the ULP issue. Despite the likelihood of deferral, there are several reasons to file a ULP charge. The board agent may convince the employer to resolve the violation before a decision to defer is announced. When a case is deferred by the NLRB, arbitrators are more likely to apply NLRA case law. If the arbitrator rules for the employer, the union can ask the regional director to reopen the ULP investigation. Dismissal. Region dismiss ULP charges if they lack merit or if they exceed the 6-month statute of limitations. A dismissal may also be entered if the violation is technical, minor, or of limited duration and no other meritorious ULP charge has been filed against the employer for several years. Dismissals can be appealed to the NLRB General Counsel. All right, just like the last one, we got questions and answers here, but this one will be shorter. All right, question. Part of the NLRB charge form is confusing. Question 1K asks for the subsections of Section 8A that the employer has violated. What if we're not sure about the correct subsection? Answer. Type all or ask the regional office for assistance. Question. When completing question 2 on the charge form, do we have to describe the violation in detail? Answer. No. A sentence or two is usually sufficient. Question. Why does the second paragraph of the sample charge on page 17 allege other violations over the past 6 months? Answer. During its investigation, the regional office may discover violations beyond those listed on the face of the charge. By including a catch-all claim going back the maximum period, you enable the NLRB to prosecute such infractions. Question. Our employer announced a new safety policy without giving the union prior notice. Over the next 7 months, it gave conflicting signals about whether it would enforce the policy. Now it says the policy is final. Is it too late to file a ULP charge? Answer. Not necessarily. The 6-month statute of limitations begins when the union has clear and unequivocal knowledge that the NLRA has been violated. If the employer is ambiguous about its intentions, for example, if it promises to reconsider its actions, the filing period may reopen or remain open. Question. If the ALJ administrative law judge finds an unfair labor practice and the employer appeals to the board, how long might it take for us to get a decision? Answer. Some cases take a year or longer. Question. Our regional directors hostile toward union charges, often dismissing them on spurious grounds. What can we do about her? Answer. Options include asking for a meeting with the director, complaining to a congressperson or senator, or picketing the regional office. Question. Does the NLRA apply in Puerto Rico? Answer. Yes, and in all U.S. territories. And here's a point. Some techniques can improve your chances of obtaining an NLRB complaint. Let the investigating agent know that you are willing to attend a face-to-face interview. Volunteer to bring witnesses. Inform the agent of prior ULPs by the employer. Call periodically to find out how the investigation is going and to ask if you can do anything to help. Refer the agent to board decisions that support your position. If you have trouble with the agent, or if the agent seems indifferent, ask to speak to the agent's superior. If the agent suggests that you withdraw your charge, ask if the regional director has received the matter. If not, tell the agent that you want the director to decide the case. Ask to meet with the director. In discipline cases, refuse to sign a stipulation allowing an arbitrator to resolve ULP issues. All right, so that being said, Chapter 1's out of the way. That's probably the most boring chapter. And hopefully, I don't get flack for this. Hopefully, you guys actually find it interesting. I'm going to put personal notes onto this. I had a fantastic steward in the past. I don't care what anyone has to say about her. Her name's Dory Bingham. She had some issues that people had problems with, but regardless, she's done many fantastic things for Roseville as a steward. In her capacity as steward, against the branch's judgment, she filed an unfair labor practice against, of course, the Roseville Post Office for not supplying information. They didn't want her to do this, and she did it on her own, and they were upset about that. It turned out to be one of the most fantastic decisions that ended up happening at Roseville because of the fact that she filed one. Later on down the line in 2023, our area put us into that settlement that I talked about the information for $17,500. There's been so many Michigan 1 District ULPs on information that somebody said, okay, well, anybody all the way back to this year, anyone that filed one within this district, they're going to be part of this consent order where we're going to charge them $17,500 every time there's a violation, plus $100 a day that they were found to be in violation. And this actually created a system where we get to submit our RFIs to Detroit RFI. It's like a union email line for the post office. And they get to call our managers and bug them every day until a request is fulfilled. So I think this was a great thing. If you are trying to think about filing a labor charge, just go with what your gut says. Do what you think is right. Consider everybody's opinions. If your branch doesn't want you to file it anyway if you think it's right. Because like I said, sometimes the outcome can be great. Branches, please be a little bit more open to this because, as you already know, our grievance system kind of sucks right now. We're backlogged and people are getting hurt by that. We're making bad and poor decisions to settle for way too low just to get rid of the backlog. So consider other alternatives. I think this ULP thing, although sometimes it's going to be a lot of effort with not a lot of payback, but other times you could get a Dory Bingham out of it. And man, she blessed our office when it comes to information requests. So I think we just have to be brave and follow our convictions. At the end of the day, doing what's right is the best thing that we can possibly do. Now, hopefully, you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
Out to the Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievance Genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Brothers and sisters, this guy is good, man. He's fucking good.
And my boy Joshua, he killed it. Man, he's lockstep right now. He's killing it.